Hey, BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner, and happy almost Christmas! Um, I won't be filming anything after today because I'll be going to my grandma's for Christmas, and, as I've said in the past, I don't like filming at her house, except for if they go on some errands and I decide to stay home, because I would have to explain to her what I'm doing. I feel like she wouldn't necessarily understand. So, I don't know if I'm gonna. In my last video, I mentioned that I was going to do. There was two tags I was going to do, but I think I'm gonna just do. I'm not gonna do that tag this year. The one of the tags this year, which is the festive Christmas book tag, because then I would have to look for it, and I'm kind of tired, so just got home from work, so I'm just gonna do the 10-year book tag that Rincey Reads created this year. Since the new year will be 2020, so it has been 10 years, and this tag basically covers what's been going on with your reading during these past 10 years. So, question number 1. What was your favorite book in 2009? Okay, now, I was hesitant to do this particular tag because I was worried, since I didn't join Goodreads until we moved here, and that was 2016. So I don't have any record of what I read back in 10 years ago. I mean, I remembered what I really liked, but I don't remember if these books I specifically read in 2009. So I'm kind of taking a stab in the dark at this because but I did what Sam with Thoughts on Tomes did, which is look up what books came out in 2009, and just picked one that I know I really love that I probably read then, because I have actually the book I decided to pick for my answer was a hardback edition, so most likely I read it at some point that year. Because in the U.S., of course, hardbacks are what first comes out. So if it's in hardback, it's most likely something that I either read that year, or although I guess not necessarily, because it's not like they stopped selling hardback editions. Although actually no, it probably would be more likely that it had just come out, because I don't necessarily, unless I will usually go for the paperback over a hardback. So it had to not been available yet when I got it. Okay, so enough with that. So the answer I decided to give is City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. I don't have this series anymore because, of course, I do really want to get back into Shadowhunter Worlds because I do enjoy it and I like it. And I know a lot of people have issues with Cassandra Clare and her writing and and I've heard that people said she's not really respectful to her fans. And I get it. You don't want to support someone who treats their fans badly, or some other thing that they're something else about them that's you don't approve of. Yeah, you don't want to give those people money and make them more rich. But when I buy books, I'm not thinking about that. That's why I don't want to know if the authors of books that I like, if they're horrible human beings. I've never met any of them in person anyway, and I'm not on Twitter, so I don't interact with them in that way either. And even though some of them have Goodreads accounts too, I don't interact with them there. So if you don't agree with me on that and you don't get that, well, that's just my opinion. I feel like as long as and maybe people would say, oh, you're putting your head in the sand. But you know what? It's my life. I can do what I want. And so what if I put my head in the sand and ignore if someone like Cassandra Clare treats their fans like crap? Because I'm never going to meet her. I mean, I might if I ever go to Y'all Fest, but it's like, I like the world that she creates. So I do want to get back into that world, but I don't have the Mortal Instruments with me anymore because we were getting ready to move. So my mom, and you don't want to, and when you're moving, you don't want to carry a whole bunch of boxes of these of heavy books because books, they're pretty heavy. And like I said, this one was a hardback edition. So that's like a brick. You could hurt someone with a book. I mean, you could even hurt someone with some of those paperbacks. Like I was watching another one of Sam from Thoughts and Gnomes' videos, and she was talking about like she was unhauling some books, and some of the books that she was unhauling were paperback, but they were pretty hefty books. So I ended up getting rid of the series because, at the time I was thinking, yeah, I enjoyed it, I liked it, but I was starting to feel like, okay, I'm moving on from Cassandra Clare, but now here I am wanting to get back into her books. And I wasn't entirely moving on from her, because I did ask. At some point, I asked for the Bane Chronicles and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. And those were books I read this year as well. And I still have those. They're in a corner in my room because I might donate them. Because I enjoy her world. I still want to read her books. But I'm going to eventually, I want to, send them to Gibbons Bookstore. To be, so someone else can enjoy her world. So I said City of Glass, which was originally when it first came out, before it was revealed that Miss Clare decided to continue and write 3 more books in the Mortal Instrument series. That was the last book in the series, and it ended great, But there was kind of a bit of a cliffhanger, so I don't know if she had decided that, when she was writing the book, because it ended on a cliff. It ended kind of suggesting, the story could continue. Like, not exactly a traditional cliffhanger, but there was an implication that, yeah, she could continue with it. But, so it was, like I said, it was originally the last book in the trilogy, But anyway, so I ended up, like I said, I picked City, so I ended up picking that one as a book in 2009 that was a favorite. And the other ones I looked at were Catching Fire, Beautiful Creatures. Although no, Beautiful Creatures, I actually can safely say that I did not get to that in 2009 because I think. Actually, no, because I read the rest of the series when we moved here. I had already read the first book. That's right. Okay, so I could have very well read that in 2009. And then I also read Hunted because Hunted from the I can't remember what book number it was, but from the House of Night series, which I gave up on that series a long time ago. Evermore, I did finish that particular series, but that series does not age well in my opinion. The Lost Symbol, that was when I was kind of into Dan Brown, but I have moved on from him. In fact, I still have not read Origin yet. I keep thinking about it and thinking about borrowing it from the library, but I never get around to it because I'm just not feeling it. And then 1Q84, which I did really like that one, but I had some issues with it. Like the 2 main characters were very dull to me. Still, it was an interesting book though. Okay, question number 2. What was your favorite book of 2019? So, my first thought when I read this question was a book that was published in 2019. But then I realized it could be a book that you just happen to have read in 2019. I still struggle with it though, even after I realized that, because I cannot narrow it down. But so I have essentially a whole pile of books that I read in 2019. So as far as books that were actually published in 2019, because I know a lot of people have issues with these particular 3. Not everybody loves these 3 books, but I mean, I'm pretty easy to place essentially. So, and I really love them. So, King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, which is the book that is mostly about Nikolai, but it's also about Zoya and Nina and some of the other characters that were introduced in the Grisha trilogy. I really love this. I know a lot of people were, one of the things that people just were disappointed because they thought it was just going to be all about Nikolai, but it's actually, like I said, it's about all his characters. And I cannot remember what people said, what other things people said that they didn't like about Rascal. What are you doing? He's rubbing his butt. But I think I really like it. I like stories about politics. I think that's really cool. I thought the concept of the story was really interesting. Oh, and this is a beautiful cover. I like the gold and the scars, and like it kind of sticks out a little bit. And I also, Nikolai was one of my favorite characters, so I liked it. And then Gilded Wolves, I liked it, and I know a lot of people said they were confused with the story, but I don't remember ever being confused with it. I thought it was very interesting. I know that people said it was like Six of Crows wannabe, but I thought I liked it. And I also, I'm also a sucker for stories set in Paris. And I also like Wicked Saints as well. I know, again, another one that I know a lot of people didn't, not everybody loved this, but I personally liked it. I thought the concept was really cool. I liked the whole blood magic thing. And I just thought it was a really cool story. And, again, like I said, I know not everybody loved it, but like I said, I'm easy to please. I have genres that I won't read, but okay, so the other books I love that were not published in 2019 were, I liked Great Expectations, which I read in October. This is my first Dickens since Christmas Carol and The Tale of Two Cities. Which I might have read The Tale of Two Cities in 2009. I have to figure out when I was in my American literature class. But this is basically about, this boy who all of a sudden who's living with his sister and brother-in-law. He's treated badly by his sister, and then somehow he inherits some money by mysterious means, and that changes his life and changes who he is and everything. And I think it's a really interesting concept, looking at how money affects people and how it can change you, and how just because you have you have some wealth doesn't, it's like all of a sudden you can be a completely different person. And another one I read my first, this is my second Oscar Wilde. I read his Picture of Dorian Gray. I read that with a friend, and I feel real now that I've read one of his plays. I feel a little like I wish I had kept that collection of some of his novellas, which included The Picture of Dorian Gray. But alas, I did not. That was one of the ones I ended up donating at some point. Actually, donated way before we even were considering moving. I had it for a long time, and I didn't know if I would ever get around to it. But this is a collection of his plays, and for Victober, we were assigned two of his plays. The group read was two of his plays, The Importance of Being Earnest, which most people know because you've seen the Colin Firth movie, and A Woman of No Importance. And I definitely prefer The Importance of Being Earnest over A Woman of No Importance. That it was definitely it was a satire. You see this guy pretends to be two different people, and he wants to marry his friend's ward, I think she says ward, and the other girl might be the ward of his friend. I don't know. He wants to marry her, and so his friend does not like that he wants to marry his ward. He's not so sure about it. He doesn't trust him. So he decides to teach him a lesson by also pretending to be the identity of the person he made, the main character made up. And he ends up falling in love with, oh yes, it was the main character, our main guy, it was the ward was his friend wanted to marry his ward, which is kind of like a child that you kind of raise. It's kind of like your adopted child. And then our main character wanted to marry the cousin of his friend, if that makes any sense. I feel like I always stumble when I don't say the names of the characters. They both eventually they are both forced. They try to reveal the fact that it was all a ruse, but then it backfires on them because both women are like, I could never marry someone unless they had this name, which is the fake name that they both use. It was very funny and very very amusing, and I had seen bits and pieces of the movie before, but I've never watched the movie all the way through. And I did like A Woman of No Importance. It's just the point of being earnest was I preferred that one over A Woman of No Importance. Okay, so I also read Misery this year. So far it's one of my favorite Stephen King's. This is basically about a writer named Paul Sheldon who decides that he wants to write something that he's more passionate. First he's very famous for this one particular historical fiction series, but he decides, he's done with writing this series and wants to move on and write something that he's more passionate about and has, in his opinion, more depth. So he decides to kill off the main character in the series he writes. But there's a fan of his who is his number one fan who's not happy about that. And while he's on a trip in the mountains, his car crashes, and he happens to be found by this number one fan, Annie, and she kidnaps him and holds him hostage and takes care of him, although her method of taking care of him is not exactly safe and health conscious. And then she basically is like, I'm not gonna let you go until you write one last book with a better ending on it. And basically she tortures him as he tries to fight her and escape. It's very gruesome and gory. I mean, not super gory, but kind of just very disturbing and very gross. At one point, because she's giving him this medication to make the pain go away, because his leg is twisted or is broken or whatever, and she doesn't have any water for him, so she makes him drink the dirty mop water that she used to clean the floor with, so he can get some, so he doesn't have to dry swallow the pills. Just really gross. But King is definitely one of the things he does best is writing interesting characters that are thrown into these horrific situations. A lot of his books deal with like things that we deal with in real life, but there's horror thrown in. Pet Sematary is all about grief and how you cope with it. And this one is kind of about fans and, when do you draw the line with pleasing them, and about the whole fans being obsessed with a writer or a performer of some kind, and how far they might go to get, or do these people owe us fans? Or is it there, or do they not owe us anything? And maybe, and sometimes getting a little obsessed is not the best thing is it's not healthy. But most of the people, most of the fangirls that I know are pretty sane and are nothing like Annie Wilkes, as far as I know anyway. Who knows? Okay, I also picked. I liked Crime. One of the first bigger classics that I read this year, Crime and Punishment. Okay, can't you just? My books are falling off the chair. Crime and Punishment by, forgive me for butchering this name, Fyodor Dostoevsky. Still cannot figure out how to say it. Which is funny because last night I watched Books Like Whoa. I can't remember her first name, and she has this book in a special edition, and I'm sure she pronounced the author's name correctly in her video. I just don't remember how she pronounced it. And this is about a student who is broke, essentially, living in the slums of a city in Russia, and he decides to solve his problem by robbing and killing a person who owns a pawn shop. And meanwhile, the rest of the book is all about him dealing with the aftermath of that and his fear of getting caught. And then there's also a subplot with his sister where she has two guys that are blackmailing her so that she'll marry them. But this is such a great book. I love Dostoevsky's writing, and I know it's a little harder to get into, but I personally enjoyed it. It did take me a while, and I actually started in 2018, but I think part of the problem is when I started the book, it was not the best place to start a book like this, because there was too many distractions. But I did finish it this year, and I absolutely loved it. I was just so engaged wanting to know what was going to happen with these characters, what was going to happen with our main character. Was he going to get away with what he did, or was he not going to get away with it? And how he was going to deal with the consequences of his actions, and what was going to happen with his sister. Was he going to be able to get her out of her situation? Put these over here. So, I also think We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is basically compared to Secret History because it has a very similar plot to it where a group of friends, one of their own gets murdered, and you're trying to find, and it's basically who done it story. Did one of them kill that person? Why did they kill them? Like, what was the motive? And in this one, it's narrated from the one who is convicted of doing the murder, and it's them telling their story because the detective who was on the case at the time when the murder happened is starting to have suspicions that the guy that they caught was not the one who did it. It was not the murderer of their friend. And this is all set amongst the backdrop of Shakespeare, because these are theater kids currently doing Shakespeare plays. They're very pretentious kids, a bit arrogant. Well, they're not, because they're college age. But it's all about their relationships and entanglements with each other, and how that kind of leads to the murder of one of their friend. I love these kind of stories, and I also love the fact that it's centered like in the backdrop of Shakespeare. In theater, I love theater. I was a theater kid myself. Now, I don't read, I've studied like at least 3 Shakespeare plays, but I never have read Shakespeare on my own. But, I mean, if you're into theater, you still kind of part of you kind of still is interested? I feel like you're still kind of interested in Shakespeare, or you want to say that you have read it. But yeah, mainly because of the whole mystery and the theater aspect I really liked. Okay, so only a few more books left. 4 more books left that I want to talk about as a favorite for 2019. This is The Lost Queen, and I didn't even think about it until after I bought it, but I actually bought Cursed, which is the Legend of Arthur Merlin retelling. And this is actually, this is based on, I think this is based on a real person, but the story itself, I think, is fiction. But this also is about, this kind of is, does it say? Or maybe just, this is actually, this particular story is about the sister of the man who, the young man who inspired Merlin, the character Merlin, in the Legend of Arthur. So basically, both this one and then the other book I bought was Cursed. Both have to do with the whole Arthur legend and mythology. So I didn't even think about it until after I bought the book. Because, although I was interested because it was about that. But, like I said, this particular one is about this young girl, this princess, who she has been arranged to marry. Okay! Sorry, parents were just leaving. She is arranged to marry one of, I can't remember who she's arranged to marry, I can't remember. She is in an arranged marriage, but she happens to have fallen in love with, one of his warriors, one of his knights. She falls in love with him, but she's supposed to marry this other guy from another kingdom. But she is kind of more interested, not only is she falling in love with someone else, but she's also kind of interested in magic, but she cannot be a sorceress because it was not her destiny. And then she has her brother who is supposed to be the inspiration for the Merlin figure. So I'm just so bad at giving these descriptions. But I really had a good time with this book. I like these kind of medieval stories. I find them really engaging and interesting. And I'm definitely more into them now than I was before, after having read books like this. And I say Cursed is also connected to it, not this book, but the whole Arthur Merlin legend, but it's from the perspective of Nimue. Which, now, as I talked about this book, sorry, my dogs are scratching, of course they are. No, you're not getting that shot. Sorry, my dogs are barking. Okay, so, and Curse is about Nimue, and now I know that the miniseries I saw with Sam Neill as Merlin, she was, in that one, she's the daughter of a lord, so there's no magic in her at all, and she's someone that she's Merlin's love interest. And then, in the series Merlin, that was, I can't remember if it was like a BBC show or a sci-fi show, or on the Sci-Fi Channel, but that is a story about young Merlin and young Arthur. And in that one, Nimue does make an appearance as a sorceress. So I'm wondering if the sorceress thing is the more accurate version of her according to the legend. and they just changed it in the other one because they didn't need to. Maybe they didn't want to add another sorceress or another hi rascal, another sorceress or another villainous character. But anyway, so but yeah, this whole story was the whole Arthur legend. I want to read the Once and Future King, which I had a chance to buy it, but I wasn't sure if I would like it or not. But now I think I kind of wish I had bought it. Which I guess I could find it at Books. I don't know if I could ever find it at Books A Million, but when I first saw it, it was at Gibbons, and of course that's a used bookstore, so there's no guarantee everything that's there will be still there. Okay, I got 3 more books I want to show you real quick that were favorites. Okay, so I read this one in November, Rebecca, which a lot of you probably heard about this, and I actually just found out that from Haley in Bookland, she did a video that was updating what books will be adapted for Netflix or any of the other streaming networks, and she said apparently Rebecca will be. And I don't know if it was going to be a movie or a show. She referred to it as a show, but I don't know how they could drag that out, how they could drag the story out. But this is about our unnamed narrator, who she's being trained as a companion for this older woman. And while they are visiting Monte Carlo, they run into this famous man, or this man who's very famous and very rich, and everyone knows about him, Mr. Maxim de Winter, whose wife had died. His first wife had died, and there's these whole rumors about her, maybe she was murdered, or that she had an accident. So that's also part of why he's so well known. And our narrator ends up spending time with him and falling in love with him. And when she comes crying to him, she's come to realize what her life is now going to be like. And he ends up proposing marriage to her. But when she gets to his house, in his home, Manderley, she is not very welcome there. And not just the servants, but everyone within 100 miles of Manderley loves his first wife, Rebecca. They're constantly talking about how great Rebecca is, how she would do things, how she would throw these fabulous parties. And our narrator is very much an insecure person struggling and trying to live up to Rebecca's name, prove that she's worthy, but no one seems to let her do that. So it's what people said, it would be probably considered a domestic thriller. Now there's no guarantee that this means I like thrillers now, but I'm definitely interested. I'm a little bit interested in them. But I feel like maybe it needs to be this, maybe more domestic or more, classic thriller. Or maybe even more literary thriller. Okay, so the next one I said, I definitely like Throne of Jade more, a little bit more than some other people did. But I do prefer His Majesty's Dragon, which is the first book in the Tamara series. And Throne of Jade is the second book. I do have the third book, but I'm waiting to start the third book because I'm hoping to get the fourth book for Christmas, so that I can and then I'll read the third book if I do get it. Because when I get into series, I like to have at least the next book after the book that I need to read. After the book that I need to read. It's because I don't know when I'll be going to a bookstore to buy that book. So it's okay, I want to have the next book, so I don't have to wait because in case I have to wait for a little while. But this is such a cute story, such a fun story about. It's set during the Napoleonic era, in a world where what if we had dragons? And Rascal, what are you doing? What if we had dragons in our world? And this, our main character, um, our main character, where is his name? Captain Lawrence. He's a Navy captain. Just him and his crew discover an egg on a French ship, and they decide to take the egg. And somehow Lawrence, even though that was not his intention, he ends up bonding with the dragon egg, and the dragon he calls Temeraire. And it's about all their training that they receive when they go to Scotland to learn how to fight together and bat during the war. Of course, there's the whole underlying thing of this is unusual situation, and there's this prejudice between the dragon riders, the aviators as they call them, and the sailors, the Navy guys, where Lawrence originally came from, the military men that Lawrence came from. But Temeraire is so great and so fun, and this is what I love. This is when I actually will read war stories, is when there's magic and there's fantasy elements involved in the story. Then I will read a war story. I'm not a big fan of war, I like the kind where you are getting perspective of those left behind, not on the battlefield stuff. That to me is when I don't like war stories, when it takes place on the battlefield. But if it has these kinds of elements, then yeah, I will give it a shot. I will check it out. And Temeraire is so adorable, so cute. He's like a dog with wings. He's adorable and he's so curious. He's like a dog mixed with a baby. Where as far as personality goes, he's so curious. He always wants to know things. He's such a passionate creature. And he's also very playful and very loyal and protective of Lawrence. And it's just, I want a pet. I want a dragon. I would love to have a pet dragon like Temeraire. Or Norbert. I like Norbert on Harry Potter. Okay, so I promise this is the last one, and then I can get to the other questions. Then Kings of the Wild. This was, again, another fun, silly book. It's not the most literary, but it's fun, and it's basically about these old guys who are retired mercenaries. But one of their own members decides to get the band back together because his own daughter has formed her own mercenary band, but she is basically trapped in a city that's being sieged, and they must rescue. He convinces them to help him rescue her. So this is basically, it's a funny, there's a lot of 80s references, like musical bands from the 80s. And it's basically like a bunch of it's like a lot of people compare it to the movie, I think it's called Red, the movie with all those veteran actors that were former CIA, and they get back together. And I've never seen the movie, so I don't know what the actual plot is. But that's essentially people saying it's essentially like this book, except for this is a medieval set story. And all of our characters, including our narrator, each have very individual personalities, and their roles in the band are like metaphors for like an 80s rock band. Like there's references to like one of the guys has a literal axe, and a lot of times people call guitars an axe. But it's so funny, and it's like, I was worried about the humor. I was worried it would be like fart jokes and stuff, and I think there might be a little bit of that, if I remember correctly, but it was mostly just, adult humor and a dad humor, but done in a way that wasn't like, yeah, you might still roll your eyes at it, but it was like, you also kind of chuckle at it. Especially if you have a dad that is like, thinks he's still 20 years old. And, like my dad. Definitely made me think of my own dad. I think if he liked fiction, if he was willing to, I think he would like this book. But I don't know if you would ever read it. Okay, so that's so in that question, I can finally get to question number 3. Okay, so question number 3 is what was your least favorite book in 2009? And I said Evermore by Alison Knoll. So this was a 4-book series about this girl who can see people's auras, like see the colors that surround them. Colors that represent their personalities, represent their feelings. But then there's one particular guy that shows up in her school that she cannot see his aura for some reason. So it's kind of like a Twilight setup. And she ends up finding out from him that the two of them are destined to be together, and that they have constantly been meeting up with each other in different past lives. And damn it. You guys are constantly interrupting me. I like keeping the door open, but then my dogs are constantly wanting to go in and out, in and out. Okay, back to the question. And so they are just, they keep meeting each other in a past life, but every time they try, it always ends bad for them. Like, she always dies. So they're essentially very cursed. And it's so cheesy and predictable, and there's all these elements that you see in a lot of fantasy books all the time. There's the jealous, slutty best friend. There's the love triangle where there's the bad boy. There's the guy that probably is endgame, and then there's the bad boy who's dangerous and evil, but our main character can't help but be drawn to him. And they're both actually a little bit bad. The other guy is a little bit bad too. He has a little edginess, but the girl has taught him how to be a better person. And then surprise, there actually is another guy who's kind of normal and boring, and he's not supernatural, but he's still connected to them, and he likes our main character. And our main character, so white, is incredibly irritating, and I hate to say this because I hate for people I don't like it myself when people use this excuse for why they don't like a main character, especially a female main character, but she was a bit whiny. And it's like, girl, you have 3 guys fighting over you, and all you can do is complain. Of course, at the same time, you don't want her to be a slut herself, or being like, oh, all these guys want me. Yay, look at me, I'm so hot. You don't want her to be like that, but at the same time, you don't want her to be like, all these guys want me, I don't know what to do. And then, there's also, and of course, the parents are dead. So the girl just has an aunt, and I think at one point the aunt dies. So it made it very convenient, so that they don't have to worry about parental figures in the story. That is a trope in itself. The whole idea of, coincidentally, parents are not in the story, or either then or they just don't care. But, and then also another thing about the best friend is not only is she jealous and slutty, but she also falls for the bad boy, and, she, even though our main character warns her, she's like, oh, I don't trust you, and I don't believe you. I don't know if I'm gonna go running or not, I'm kind of tired. But, if I'm gonna go, though, I probably should go soon, though. Sorry, I was looking at my window. But anyway, so yeah, there were just so many elements that I rolled my eyes at, and I couldn't, I only read it because I kind of wanted to know how things were going to work out for the characters. And at the time, I didn't hate as much as I do looking back now. But it was very much a Twilight wannabe, except for they weren't vampires, they were just happened to be immortal people that live forever. But there was no vampires, and no fangs and blood and skin that, was as hard as diamonds. But I imagine people still would not like that series today. But that was the first book in the series. Okay, so question number 4 is what was your least favorite book in 2019? And I did not have an answer for this one. Actually, no, I did. That's right. I did. I was just thinking about what my answer is for this one. But I have quite a few answers. Like, I wasn't a big fan of Handmaid's Tale. I think this is one of the few times where it's like, everyone talks about how great, I mean, yeah, most of the time I'm not influenced by hype, because I'm thinking, why do you let the hype bother you? So what? A lot of people love the book. But, although, I have said in the past that I do get it. People are afraid that a book is so popular and you're the one person who doesn't like it. There are times where I do, sometimes, like for instance, people are constantly, will talk about, with the show version of Witcher just premiered on Netflix last night, or yesterday, and not yesterday, on the 20th, on Friday. So I ended up watching the first 5 episodes of it, and I was watching reviews by Elliot Brooks and Daniel Green, and they were critiquing the CGI and saying it was almost too much. And I'm thinking, I don't get it. I don't see it. I don't understand why people are I don't like CGI, and they're it's almost too much, and I personally don't see it. And then yes, if it's dated and still new, then yeah. With Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I could tell that the CGI was bad because it was just starting to develop. But nowadays, I can't tell. So in a way, it's kind of the same thing where people. So in a way, I kind of have a similar reaction to how people react when a book, they end up not liking a popular book, where it's I don't get it. So I guess this kind of is like that, The Handmaid's Tale, because it was so popular, and I just don't think it's that popular. It is popular. I don't think it's that as good. I think it's interesting, but it's not my kind of book. But at the same time, I'm also not personally why does this have to be so popular? Why is this such a hype book? It's not that great. It's I didn't like these books that I thought they were graphic novels, but they're written like regular books. But these are books that I got at a convention, and I always make that mistake of getting books from conventions that I end up not liking. And I'm thinking, why do I always do that to myself? And I think it's because I see books. And as soon as I see books, I'm oh, I have to get this book. Oh my god, I have to buy this book. But I don't remember what the whole series is called. But the first book it's kind of a prequel book. The Ghouls of War, and then the Welsh Witch. But it's basically about this woman, it's like Buffy, but it's a little more convoluted. But it's a very similar to Buffy, but it's not wow, it's not that great. I imagine the book Slayer is better than that. Although this, so it's and I didn't even bother with reading the next book. I just part 2. I decided to put in the donation pile. Let's see what else. I am continuing with the series. I really love it, but I gotta admit, I wasn't a huge fan of The Last Wish from the collection of short stories, the first collection of short stories in the Witcher series. But I am keeping going with it, and I really liked Blood of Elves. But the short stories were a little bit hard to get used to. Let's see what else. I can't think of what else is a least favorite, but I'll just stick with those. Okay, question number 5. Question number 5 is, what is a book published in 2009 that you want to that you still want to read. Okay, so I said I did give 2 answers, but one of them I don't have a copy of the book to show you guys, and that is Under the Dome by Stephen King. I am actually that's another book I'm hoping to get for Christmas. But I don't know if that will happen or not. So, but the other one that I want to get to is that I still want to read is The Magicians by Lev Grossman, the first book in this trilogy. I know like a lot of people have issues with this book, and not everybody loves this trilogy. And no, I would not go into even though I haven't read it, I can already tell you that because I've also seen the TV series, so I have some idea what goes on in this book. I would not go into this thinking, oh, it's just like Harry Potter. It's not like Harry Potter. It's an adult story about kids. The only thing it has in common with Harry Potter is, well, there's 2 things it has in common with Harry Potter. It's a story about magic, and they go to a magic school. But they're college age, and they're very dysfunctional, messed up kids that have a lot of issues. And it kind of like is, and then the whole fillery part of the story that makes me think more of like books like Narnia and Alice in Wonderland, like in Lord of the Rings, where these characters go into magical, well, actually probably more Narnia than anything, where they go into a magical world. And it's based on a series of books that our main character, Quentin, is a huge fan of. So, another thing is, I have seen the show, so I know how messed up our main characters are. Now, I understand why people, from what I've heard about what happens, like, I don't know the exact details, of course, but from what I've heard that happens in the story, I get people's problems. Like, they feel like there's something that our main character, Quentin, does, he crosses a line, and the author glosses over it. Now, from what I've seen at the show, I'm wondering if in the show, like, it feels like in the show, maybe, if it's the thing I'm thinking of, then I don't think they gloss over it in the show. There's more consequence, which yeah, I mean, I feel like that's what a lot of times when the screenwriters make a show version of a popular book, they try to make sure that things that in the book that are a little flawed and people don't like and cause controversy, they try to change them. At least that's what happened. That's what happened with the Outlander series. They changed it on the show because there were things about the series that were controversial and people did not like. And I feel like maybe they did that with this one. Because in my opinion, I feel like it didn't gloss over that horrible thing that Quentin does. Like I said, I still want to read it, because I know what I'm getting into with it. And also, I know that some other booktubers, like Sam from Thousand Tomes, love this. This is one of her favorite trilogies, I think. So that one and Under the Dome are the ones I would still love to read at some point. That's what happens sometimes when I do these videos, I get a tickle in my throat. My throat starts to feel all scratchy and stuff. Okay, so question number 6. What is a book published in 2019 that you want to get to before 2020? And when I was coming up with answers for this one, I realized that all my answers would not work. Well, most of them wouldn't work because there's no way I'm going to get to them. I don't even have a lot of them yet, and I'm kind of hoping to get some of them for Christmas this year. I don't know if I might not even get them until January or at the end of Christmas, because we will be having 3 Christmases so that we'll go into my grandma's, and then we'll have our own mini Christmas, because we decide, we still give my parents and I still give each other physical gifts, which, crap. I won't have anything to give I won't have anything to give to my mom physically. That was the only problem I made that's the only problem with, I'll have to talk to my dad and see what he says. If he thinks I should actually physically buy something, but I don't know. I guess I would have to buy it when we go to see my grandma's place. unless he says it won't be a big deal. I mean, granted, I know that my mom will probably be like, it's not like my mom, it's not like my mom's gonna get upset if I don't give her anything yet. If I don't know, she doesn't get anything from me until. But I'll just see what my dad says. He might still think I should get her something to actually physically open when we open gifts from each other, which I don't have. And then so we can spend time with my nephews. We can have Christmas with my sister and my nephews and her husband, of course. We're gonna go in January. We're gonna go visit them. But anyway, so I don't know when I'll get any of these books. I don't know which ones I'll get for Christmas. If I'll get any of them. I'm hoping I'll get them. If not, then one day I'm just gonna have to get them myself at some point. But there is one particular one that I know I can read. Now, I did get a little confused with this question because I also picked one that I want to get to, but the question refers to books that were published in 2019, and this particular book, first of all, not only is it a huge book that I'm probably not going to get done before the end of the year, but it also was not published in 2019. That book referred to a book that was published in 2019. But I do have an answer for it, and that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which means I'm probably going to since I said this, I feel like now I have to bring it with me to my grandma's. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling by Bridget Cameraere. But first of all, our main character Harper is from our world, from a modern world, and she also, I can't remember what it was that she has a is it cerebral palsy? It might be. I think it might be cerebral palsy. And meanwhile, our Beast character transforms every night and basically destroys his kingdom, or something along those lines. So I realize now that I put this answer, I might have to bring it with me to my grandma's. So I am in trouble here because I can't decide what books to bring with me, and I don't want my bag to be too heavy either. Okay, so there's that one. Okay, so question number 7. What is a genre you used to read a lot of that you don't read as much anymore? And in this case, I barely read it. And that is the paranormal genre. So I've kind of just started to move away from that genre, although, like I said, I still want to read Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter series. I still want to, and that's more paranormal or urban fantasy, I guess you could say. But I've kind of moved on from the whole paranormal. I mean, I'll still watch it on TV, but or watch movies. Although I know that I've shared on another tag that I do want to check out Jay Kristoff's vampire novel that's coming out. But I don't know. I'm not sure if I will or not, because I've also kind of moved on from the whole vampire thing. But yeah, paranormal is just, I've just lost interest in the whole paranormal genre. I want, more fantasy rather than being in the real world stuff when it comes to my books. Like I said, I still will watch stuff that are more paranormal, like Ghost Whisperer, for instance. That is about a woman who can talk to the dead. And I watch reruns of that series. In fact, I need to watch that now after I finish filming this. But yeah, I'm just, I just kind of moved on from paranormal. I like the supernatural stuff, but I just kind of want to get more immersed in another world entirely, not just our world, but with, fantasy creatures or supernatural creatures. When I'm reading a book, I want to actually escape into another world, not just our world, but with all that stuff in it. But I'm not totally, saying goodbye to that genre. Okay, so question number 8. What is a new genre you discovered in 2009? Now, this is not necessarily something that is entirely new to me, but it's one that I'm getting more into. And that is epic / adult fantasy. I just really, like I said, I want to be more immersed in another world. And I want to, and now that I've gotten older physically, I want to read more books that are more originally intended for my age group. And I still love YA. I will still read YA. I mean, I'll read books like A Curse So Dark and Lonely. But I want to, I want to read more books, that are more adult as well. Particularly in the fantasy genre. Because even though most of them are really, really long and chunkers of books, I feel like I'm missing out on something when I'm not reading those books. And I want to escape into those stories. Okay, and then I also included horror. I want to get more into horror, but I haven't gone beyond Stephen King yet. Yeah, I want to go beyond Stephen King. I mean, I guess Rebecca kind of counts as in that genre, the thriller version of that genre. But like I said, I haven't gone beyond Stephen King. I have tried his son Joe Hill, and I like it, and I almost feel like I need to buy Nosferatu. I cannot say that word. His other book about the guy, his book that I think it's actually just came out, last year or something. Last year is in 2018, where it takes place during the summer. This girl has a gift for finding things, and then there's this weird, mysterious creature, vampire-like guy that kidnaps children and takes them to children that he thinks are being abused and whisks them away to Christmas Land, and they basically are like vampires or undead or something like that. But I've never finished it because I got it from the library, and it's a long book. So I mean, he writes long books just like his dad does, and I feel like I need to buy it. I just haven't got around to it yet. And then I also said historical fiction, which I mean I've always read. I have read more historical fiction than I've read horror, but I still haven't read it enough. It's a genre that I've liked when I have read it, but my goal this year was to get more into it. So I have all of Kate Warren's books now, or her all up to date books. I don't know if she's publishing anything else anytime soon. One of the books I read this year was I can't see what it's called, but something I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember. It was another World War II book about this woman who becomes a spy in France. No, it's not The Nightingale. It's a different, like I Remember Paris or something. And she falls in love with a British soldier, or she's an American woman who becomes a spy in France. Like she leaves her husband, and then she ends up falling in love with this British guy who's also a spy. And it's so it's kind of like it's similar to The Nightingale. Like I can't remember. Like I Remember Paris or Only in Paris or something. And then The Nightingale I really liked. I almost got Kristen Hanna's other book that she published in 2018, The Great Alone. I almost got that one from the library, but I ended up not getting it. And then Last Time I Saw Paris, that's what it was called. I know it was something like that. Last Time I Saw Paris, I don't remember what the Lynn Sheen, I think the author's name is. And then let's see what other books that I read that are historical fiction. Sarah Waters I really like. And I'm hoping to read Ken Follett. It's just his books are also chunky books, and the trilogy that the Century trilogy, my copies of the Century trilogy are also big physically, so they're hard to travel with. But I want to get into that too. So I don't historical fiction I want to get more into. Okay, question number 9. What is a book or book habit you are hoping to leave behind in this decade? So, like, I am a bookaholic. I love buying books, like everybody else. And so the problem is that I end up buying more books than I go through. Buy more than I read, essentially. So this coming 2020, I want to read more books than I buy. I mean, it's kind of hard because there's not a lot to do around here in this neighborhood. So when I'm not working, then sometimes to just get out of the house, I like to go, up to the used bookstore, which it is cheap books, but it's still spending money and buying books. So it's there's not a lot to do around here, and then I don't drive, so, I either have to take public transport, or I have to ask my parents for a ride, so it's and the used bookstore is like a 10-minute walk. And, of course, I'm not going to go to the library every day. I'm only going to go to the library when I have a book to get back to them. So there's not a lot to do around here. So I end up going to the bookstore and buying a book. I mean, the only way I won't buy a book is if I don't actually go into the store and see the books. So this year I want to go through my books and actually read some of my older books. I know I'm definitely going to bring The Count of Monte Cristo with me to my grandma's. That's a definite. That one I definitely need to bring with me because it's one of the oldest books on my shelf, and I need to get that read. So like I said, I want to read more books than I buy. But I know that I'm never going to go cold turkey and stop buying books. I just want to go through my books and actually read a lot. And that's one of my goals this year. A goal that I don't think I wrote that goal down. Okay, and then question number 10 is, what is a new reading goal or habit you want to create in the upcoming decade? Other than that, I want to also read one classic per month. Because I definitely read more classics this year than ever before. But I want to keep going and expanding that. So, Lucy the Reader is hosting a challenge that's going to go all year round where you read classics. So I'm participating in that, which means I want to read one classic book a month at least. I mean, I might read 2, if I read, a play or a short classic, then I can squeeze in and I can read another classic. And now I'm more into them, I'll be more prone to, read, have more than one classic to bring with me when I go traveling, when I go to either my sister's place or my grandma's place. Okay, so those are my long-winded answers to the 10-year book tag. So if you guys feel like doing this tag, feel free to consider yourself tagged and feel free to do it. Or if you just don't feel like doing it, if you want, you can pick one of my questions on one of the questions in the tag and answer them in the comment section below if you feel like it. And if you like this video, be sure to give a thumbs up and click subscribe if you have not already. I hope you're enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!